Are you tired of feeling like you're stuck in the same place, no matter how hard you try to move forward? That sense of spinning your wheels, working, planning, overthinking, yet somehow making no real progress is frustrating, exhausting, and quietly suffocating. You set goals, you make to-do lists, you even tell yourself, this time I'm serious, but somehow days turn into weeks and nothing really changes. That invisible wall between where you are and where you want to be just won't budge. You might be wondering if it's a lack of discipline, motivation, or maybe even bad luck. But deep down, you know it's something else. Something harder to name. You can feel your potential buried just beneath the surface. So close it's almost painful, and yet something keeps pulling you back into old habits, old fears, and the safety of routine. You know what you want. You even know why you want it. So why can't you just start? Because it's not always about knowing more, it's about doing something different. Most people stay stuck because they wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, or the perfect mindset. They wait to feel ready. But what if readiness never comes? What if clarity only comes after movement? That's the uncomfortable truth. Waiting is the enemy. Action is the cure. You don't need another motivational quote or vision board. You need a shift, a pattern break, a jolt that reminds you how much power you actually have when you decide to act. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. Because real change doesn't begin with a strategy. It begins with a decision, a moment. And maybe, just maybe, that moment is now. We all experience moments in life where we feel completely stuck, not just unsure, hesitant, but truly paralyzed. You wake up knowing you want something more, something better, but it feels like you're wading through mud just trying to take a single step forward. You might have big dreams, clear goals, even a vision of the life you want, but for some reason, taking consistent, meaningful action feels just out of reach. And that gap between where you are and where you want to be grows heavier with time. This kind of stuckness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet and sneaky. It shows up in procrastination, overthinking, endless planning, and the illusion of productivity. You might tell yourself you're just waiting for the right time or that next week things will be different. But deep down, a part of you knows you're just circling the same loop, caught between the comfort of what's familiar and the discomfort of what's unknown. Getting stuck isn't a character flaw. It's part of being human. Our minds are wired to keep us safe, not necessarily to push us toward growth. So when change feels uncertain or risky, our brains send out warning signals: fear, doubt, hesitation. These signals can be loud enough to drown out your ambition, making it feel like you're not ready, not capable, or not enough. But the truth is, readiness is a myth. Nobody feels ready when they're about to do something meaningful. That discomfort, it's the price of progress. What if you stopped waiting to feel confident and started acting anyway? What if the real breakthrough comes not from more planning, but from bold, imperfect action? The kind of action that feels uncomfortable, but honest. Because clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing, from putting yourself in motion, even when you're not sure where the path leads. The good news is you don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. You don't need to be fearless or flawless. You just need to break the pattern. A small shift, a change in perspective, a decision to disrupt the inertia. Momentum doesn't start with a grand gesture. It starts with a single move, something you can control today. And once you feel that shift even slightly, everything begins to change. Not because the world suddenly changes, but because you do. And that's where transformation begins. Feeling stuck isn't always obvious. Sometimes it disguises itself as busyness. You might be doing 100 things a day, checking boxes, replying to emails, planning your next move. But still, deep down, you know you're not really moving forward. You're spinning your wheels in place, exhausted but unfulfilled. Other times it shows up as paralysis. You sit with ideas, dreams, ambitions, but you can't seem to start. Days go by, then weeks, and you're still telling yourself, I just need to figure it out. The real problem is the lack of desire. You want more. You can see the life you want. You may even know the steps in theory. But there's a block, a fog that clouds your focus, weighs down your motivation, and makes every step feel heavier than it should. It's not because you're lazy or incapable. It's because there's a gap between knowing and doing. And that gap is often filled with fear, self-doubt, and old patterns that keep looping in your mind. Maybe you fear failing, or maybe you fear succeeding because success would mean stepping into a completely different version of yourself. And that's just as terrifying. Maybe you've been burned before. You took action in the past, it didn't work out. And now your mind is protecting you from feeling that again. So instead of taking risks, you replay old moments, analyze every possible scenario, and convince yourself that waiting just a little longer will make it easier. But it doesn't. In fact, the longer you wait, the harder it becomes. The more you think, the more reasons you find not to act. Overthinking becomes a habit. Fear becomes a baseline. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin settling for less than you're capable of, for routines that don't challenge you, for goals that don't scare you. This is the real challenge, learning to interrupt that cycle, because nothing outside of you will shift until something inside of you does. It's not about waiting for motivation to magically appear. It's about recognizing that stuckness is often just a story, one you've told yourself so many times it feels like truth, but it's not. The truth is you're capable of far more than you're allowing yourself to access right now. The challenge isn't doing the impossible. It's daring to start with what's possible and letting that be enough. The path out of feeling stuck isn't as complicated as it seems. It starts with recognizing that change doesn't begin in your circumstances, it begins in your state. The way you feel in any given moment isn't just random, it's influenced by your posture, your breath, your movement, and your focus. When you're slouched, breathing shallow, and focused on everything that's going wrong, you're conditioning your body and mind to stay in a low energy state. That's not a place where action thrives. But when you shift your physical energy, stand up, breathe deeply, move intentionally, you tell your brain that it's time to engage. A small physical change can spark a powerful emotional shift. It may sound simple, but try it. Your body leads your mind more than you realize. Next comes raising your standards. Most people think they live according to their goals, but in truth, they live according to what they're willing to tolerate. If you accept being overwhelmed, underpaid, uninspired, or unhealthy as just the way it is, then that's what your life will continue to reflect. Change happens when you decide that what used to be acceptable is no longer an option. That's not about being hard on yourself. It's about drawing a clear line in the sand. When you raise your minimum standards, your behaviors naturally begin to align with the new version of yourself you're stepping into. But none of this means anything without action. Not planning, not imagining, not talking, action. And not just safe, calculated steps, bold action. The kind that feels uncomfortable, the kind you'll want to avoid, the kind that tells your old patterns, I'm done waiting. Action is what separates people who live in theory from people who create results. And it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it won't be. But action creates momentum. The momentum creates confidence, not the other way around. You don't need a 12-step plan. You need a starting point, one phone call, one message, one decision. Do something that puts you into motion, because once you move, your brain follows. Once you decide, your energy shifts. Once you start, the path becomes clearer. This isn't about doing more. It's about doing something that matters. Something real, something now. That's how change begins. Not with a plan, and a move. There comes a moment in everyone's life when the weight of staying the same becomes heavier than the fear of change. That moment might come quietly, maybe in the middle of a sleepless night or while staring at your reflection, wondering when you stop feeling like yourself, or it might hit you like a wave, sudden and undeniable. Either way, it's a turning point, a split-second realization that you can't keep doing life the way you've been doing it, that something has to change, and it starts with you. It's the key moment. Not because everything around you is different, but because you are different. Not because all the answers are clear, but because you've decided that staying stuck is no longer acceptable. This decision doesn't come with fireworks. It doesn't need to be loud or dramatic, but it's powerful. It's the moment you stop outsourcing your future to the right time or better conditions and take ownership of it right now. In that instant, you stop waiting, you stop needing permission, you stop letting fear write the script of your life, and you realize that the only thing that's ever truly held you back wasn't failure, wasn't rejection, wasn't the opinions of others. It was hesitation. It was the story you told yourself about why it's safer to stay where you are. But now, that story no longer fits. You might not know what the next chapter looks like. That's okay. Most people don't. But the act of deciding, truly deciding to move forward anyway, is what sets everything in motion. It's not about being fearless. It's about being honest. It's about saying, I may not have it all figured out, but I'm not staying here. This is the shift that changes everything, the mental and emotional pivot that breaks the loop you've been stuck in. You're no longer someone hoping for change, you're someone choosing it. And that changes the game, because once you commit, even in a small way, life starts to meet you there. Opportunities begin to reveal themselves, energy starts to return. That first move, however small, becomes the seed of transformation. Everything that seemed so hard before, it's still there, but now, so is your decision. And that makes all the difference. Getting unstuck isn't about a sudden miracle or waiting for the stars to align. It's about stepping into a truth that's always been within you. You have the power to change your life one decision at a time. The frustration, the hesitation, the endless cycles of planning and not acting, those aren't signs that you're broken. They're signs that you've outgrown your current level of thinking and doing. The discomfort you feel is a message. It's a signal that you're ready for more, even if you don't feel ready yet. And you pause and look back, it's easy to see all the times you waited. You waited for clarity. You waited for motivation. You waited to feel brave. But real change has never been about waiting. It's about action, small, imperfect, messy action that breaks the rhythm of indecision and creates new momentum. That's where transformation starts, not with knowing everything, but with doing something. So the truth is, you don't need a complete roadmap before you take the first step. You don't need to feel confident before you act. Confidence is built through action, not the other way around. And you don't have to be fearless to move forward. You just have to be more committed to progress than to staying comfortable. That's the real shift. That's where things begin to open up. You already have what it takes to break free from stuckness. The strength, the ideas, the desire. What's been missing is the spark, the choice to act despite uncertainty. Once you decide to interrupt the old patterns, even in the smallest way, everything begins to change. You shift from hoping to doing, from waiting to moving. And in that space, you rediscover your power. So as you reflect on where you are now, know that staying stuck is not your destiny. It's just a chapter. And like all chapters, it can end the moment you decide to turn the page. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to move one step, one breath, one action. That's where it starts, not later, not someday, now. Because momentum doesn't find you, you create it, and everything you're waiting for is already waiting on you to begin. Now is your moment. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when things feel easier or clearer, right now. If you've read this far, then something inside you is already stirring, a voice that knows it's time to make a change. That voice is real, and it's waiting for one thing: action. You don't need to overhaul your life in a day. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to make one decision that disrupts the cycle. Ask yourself, what's one action, small but meaningful, you can take today that your future self will thank you for? Maybe it's making a phone call you've been avoiding. Maybe it's starting that project you keep postponing. Maybe it's simply writing down what you really want without filters or fear. Whatever it is, do it today, not because you have all the answers, but because doing something is infinitely more powerful than doing nothing. Start with one move, one shift in direction. It could be as simple as setting a clear intention for the day, speaking up in a conversation, or choosing to finally follow through on something that matters. That one move could change your momentum entirely. Action creates energy. It builds confidence. It sets off a chain reaction that makes the next step easier. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be willing to try, willing to move, willing to stop waiting for perfect conditions and start building from where you are. You're more capable than you've allowed yourself to believe, and everything you're seeking is already within reach once you start reaching for it. So take that first step today, right now, before doubt talks you out of it, before hesitation convinces you to wait again. Because this moment, the one you're in right now, is your opportunity to shift everything, not with more thinking, but with bold, committed doing. Don't just let this message inspire you. Let it move you. Let it push you to act. You don't need permission. You just need to say yes to yourself, to your potential, to the life that's been waiting for you to step into it. The next chapter begins with one decision. Make it count.